She begged for help in a monumental struggle, and what he did was incredibly transformative. Sarah stared at the blinking check engine light on her dashboard, her heart sinking with each flicker. The snow swirled outside her worn-out car as she gripped the steering wheel, the cold creeping through the ventilation. Another morning of juggling her tight schedule was slipping through her fingers like grains of sand. She had just lost her mother, the one person who had bolstered her through the chaos of single-parenting two young children, Ethan and Lily, and now her lifeline was gone. The hollow ache in her chest pulsed angrily. Why did everything have to pile on at once? The grave absence of her mother loomed like a shadow, engulfing her with doubt about her ability to keep her kids safe and provided for. Her shift as a medical assistant loomed large ahead of her. A job she had once loved turned into a grim reminder of her financial struggle. Nights of restless worry gnawed at her peace of mind. What if she missed another expense? The thought of unfulfilled needs for Ethan's school supplies or Lily's art supplies knotted in her stomach. Every second spent worrying felt like a punch in her gut, compounding her anxiety. Already stretched to her limits, the thought of her car giving up on her now was like a cruel joke. A dull thud echoed as her engine sputtered, and she felt her pulse hitch for an instant. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Just as she surely sensed the end was nigh for her vehicle, her phone buzzed, a name from the past lighting up her screen. Brian. Brian, who had once cracked endless jokes in high school and chased her with his boyish charm. Now, years later, he was a successful mechanic, someone who had always admired her from the bleachers of life. A connection that felt refreshing amidst her despair felt too risky to pursue. She couldn't bear the thought of opening her already cracked life to his scrutiny, but with a deep breath, she tapped reply. With each exchange, her heart raced, revealing a mesh of vulnerability and hope. She laid bare her fears, failing at her job, failing to give her children stability, failing herself. It felt like standing on a cliff, facing a gaping chasm. What if the anticipation of help led to more disappointment? What if he felt pity rather than genuine concern? At that thought, her chest tightened, and she found herself almost drowning in her swirling self-doubt. Later that day, uneasiness settled in her stomach like a rock. Brian had offered not just his skills, but something that felt incredibly ethereal, a glimpse of security she had long thought unreachable. Was she a fool for hoping? Just as hope stirred in her chest, the creeping weight of judgment knocked uncomfortably at the corners of her mind. Could she accept his support without becoming a burden? With a racing mind, she resolved on a path she hadn't chosen. Suddenly, tire screeches pierced her thoughts. Her heart lurched. Life swirled away from her grasp as uncertainty crept closer, and a new reality loomed on the horizon. Would she dare leap into the unknown? The following morning, Sarah stepped out of her house, her breath visible in the chilly air, the sun peeking over the horizon like a hesitant ally. Today felt different. Perhaps it was Brian's words echoing in her mind, nudging her toward a decision she had long delayed. With his unassuming confidence radiating through their conversation, she felt a flicker of light amidst her shadows. Maybe she could allow herself to hope. As she slid into her car, the familiar smell of old upholstery and stale coffee merged with a new sense of determination. With a quick twist of the key, the engine roared to life. No sputter, no ominous noises. A small victory, she thought, her lips curving into a semblance of a smile. Appreciation flooded her at the thought of Brian. She owed it to him to check in, perhaps even arrange a meeting. The anticipation rooted within her, growing from an idea into a palpable possibility. Arriving at the clinic, Sarah's gaze swept the waiting room, filled with familiar faces. Patiently navigating through her duties, she allowed moments of connection with her patients to awaken the passion she once felt for her work. Each interaction felt deeper, each laugh more genuine. The stifling weight of her worries was momentarily lifted, replaced by the brief, illuminating exchanges that made her feel alive, a stark contrast to the emotional fog that had enveloped her since her mother's death. Yet as the shift dragged on, Sarah's lingering doubts re-emerged like uninvited visitors. Was she capable of improving her situation? Could she transform herself from a woman teetering on the brink of despair to someone who truly flourished? The juxtaposition was stark, her personal struggles battling against the professional persona she had honed for years. On some level, she understood that change required more than just optimism. It demanded opportunities, decisions, and perhaps the believability that she could succeed. Fear and hope twisted within her, telling separate narratives, one of inevitable failure, the other of potential. Was she ready to confront her limitations, or would she drown in the familiar pull of her insecurities? A fateful encounter changed her trajectory that day. The receptionist, Angela, a seasoned expert in wellness approaches, caught her gaze. "You know, Sarah, I've always admired how you handle the kids. I think you should apply for that position at the family clinic. Your patience and rapport with patients could do wonders there," she said, her eyes sparkling with encouragement. The words struck a chord. The family clinic was known for its nurturing atmosphere, with programs designed to support single parents in the community. This was something Sarah had considered in her idle daydreams, an opportunity that felt like a seed of hope. But the fear of rejection gnawed at her, a compost of disbelief, uncertainty, and instinctual reticence. That evening, she stared at the job application website, her heart pounding and flaring doubts clawed at her mind. The logistics of balancing her work with the demands of single parenting were daunting. Could this venture contribute to the stability she craved for Ethan and Lily? Would seeking new opportunities feel like a reckless gamble or an act of courageous self-assertion? She drummed her fingers on the keyboard, eyeing the form awaiting completion. Within that digital abyss lay a potential she hadn't fully grasped yet. A chance to redefine her life, to weave a tighter narrative between her dreams and her reality. Amidst the turmoil, one thought crystallized. She had nothing to lose and everything to gain. With each breath, she felt the receding tide of her fears and the swelling ocean of anticipation. Sarah took a deep inhalation, resolved to take the leap into this new terrain. For the first time in months, she clicked, "Submit." As she sat back, a wave of clarity washed over her. What would come next? Would this newfound ambition unveil dormant capacities within her? The dawn of possibility glimmered just ahead, illuminating pathways she couldn't yet see. But one question lingered heavily. Would she be ready for what awaited her on the other side? The days following the submission of her application felt like suspended animation. Each sunrise ushered in a blend of anticipation and apprehension, casting shadows over Sarah's mind. Just when she thought relief might come, the darkness emerged again, doubling back on itself like a snake chasing its own tail. The enormity of her choice loomed over her, a heavy cloak hewn from both excitement and fear. What if this was a mistake? What if the clinic didn't call? Work continued to be a refuge, and she crafted a veneer of normalcy as she tended to her patients. However, beneath the surface, her thoughts churned like a storm. There were moments that drew her out, pocketed instances when laughter bubbled up during playful conversations with children, their innocence granting her clarity. But even those were but reprieves, fleeting moments where the weight of uncertainty would dissipate momentarily. Ethan and Lily remained her anchors. Their laughter, their small victories at school or in life, grounded her in ways she hadn't anticipated. Yet watching them grow while she felt ensnared in her own stagnation ignited a flicker of jealousy within her. Could she justify continuing down a path that felt so unfulfilling? With each bedtime story, she wrestled deeper with the question, by pursuing her passion, was she also fostering ambition in her children? Days merged into one another, and just when she thought the heartache of waiting would crush her, the call came. A soft ring echoed through her home, the sound morphing into a siren as she answered. The voice on the other end was warm, welcoming. It was the director of the family clinic, and Sarah's heart raced as she leaned against the hallway wall for support. "We reviewed your application, Sarah," the voice said, and her breath caught. "We're impressed. Can you come in for an interview tomorrow?" "Yes, of course." The response was out of her mouth before she could think rationally, an anchor of hope keeping her afloat amidst the torrential doubt. Post-call, she drifted like a ghost through her home, touching surfaces yet not feeling engaged with anything around her. Preparations took over quickly, an almost manic energy propelling her to lay out her outfit, rehearse answers in front of the mirror, and visualize the space where she might soon work. Would she impress them? Could she articulate her vision for children who came to the clinic burdened with hardship? As the evening drew on, she planted herself at the dining table with a journal, a soft pen poised to capture her thoughts. The words poured out, unfiltered and raw, documenting her fears about being judged, her hopes for the role, and most crucially, the potential impact on her children. They'd see her break free from the tether that had been holding her down for too long. They'd see what aiming for a passion looked like, and that alone was worth the risk. The hour grew late, yet sleep eluded her. A prickle of self-doubt tugged at the corners of her mind, echoing accusations of unworthiness. But she fought back against the shadows, envisioning herself after the interview, confident, accomplished, able to gift her children a legacy of pursuit and courage. Waking up on the day of the interview felt like stepping into a dream. The world was sharper, colors more vivid. She embraced these first moments with a sense of heightened clarity. As she drove toward the clinic, the city slid by outside her window, transformed into an ideal backdrop for the hopeful narrative she was ready to weave. Yet, as she parked and glanced at the towering facade of the clinic, her breath caught once more. A flurry of thoughts clouded her mind. What if they saw through her facade? What if the girl who had spiraled into despair could never fit into this new chapter? But then she remembered her children, their unwavering belief in her capabilities, and the thrill of opening a door she had long left closed. Today wasn't merely an audition for a new job. It was a crucial step in reshaping herself, the person she was meant to be. As she crossed the threshold of the clinic, a swell of resolve surged within her. With each step, she was not just facing an interview, she was confronting her self-imposed limitations. And just as she prepared to enter a world of possibility, her phone buzzed heavily in her pocket. Another unexpected call was coming through. Curiosity mixed with trepidation as she glanced at the screen. What now? In that moment, she stood at the precipice of personal transformation and unexpected revelations. With a quick glance, Sarah saw the caller ID. It was her former mentor, Dr. Harris. Panic fluttered in her chest. She had dreaded this moment. He had always pushed her to excel, reminding her that she could achieve any goal she set. But her first instinct was to ignore the call. After all, she was about to step into a pivotal moment of her career. She hesitated, caught between the lure of the unknown awaiting her within the clinic walls and the familiar weight of expectations on the other end of the line. The buzzing phone nagged at her resolve. What if this was the affirmation she needed? Summoning a deep breath, she answered. Sarah. Dr. Harris's voice was steady, as if he somehow knew her inner turmoil. I heard about your application. I'm proud of you for taking this step. His words stirred a deeper restlessness within her. Thank you, Dr. Harris. I'm just about to head into my interview, she managed, her voice trembling slightly. Good, but I wanted to talk to you, he said, the urgency of his tone raising her anxiety. I've been reflecting on why so many clinicians fall into complacency. The truth is, it's easy to get lost in the routine. You have to pursue what gives you purpose, Sarah. Remember the passion that brought you into this field? Recalling the spark that once fueled her dreams momentarily ignited a flicker of determination. Yes, but... There are no buts in growth, he interrupted firmly. You're creating your path now. Protect that ambition. His words echoed in her mind as their conversation wrapped up. Understanding flickered in her heart as her determination solidified. He was right. She had a chance to redefine her narrative, but it would require stepping outside her comfort zone. With the call ended, she took a moment before pushing through the clinic doors. Every nerve in her body buzzed silently with a mixture of awareness and ambition. Inside, the waiting room was brightly colored, adorned with children's artworks, a visual reminder of the job she hoped to secure. As she moved toward the reception area, her heartbeat quickened. What would the panel ask? Would they see the strength she knew lay dormant inside her? Moments later, she found herself in the interview room, facing the panel. As she sat down and exchanged pleasantries, she fought against the urge to retreat. The room felt both welcoming and intimidating. But as they began to inquire about her past experiences and her vision for the clinic, a latent confidence emerged from within her. Sarah found herself articulating thoughts she didn't know she possessed. Ideas about community engagement, innovative therapeutic practices, and family-centered care flowed seamlessly from her lips. Just as she began to feel the energy shift, just as a connection began to manifest, one of the interviewers, a stern, bespectacled woman, leaned forward. "Your ideas are interesting, Sarah, but do you truly think you can handle the pressures here? We've seen many passionate applicants falter under the reality of the work." The implications weighed heavily on her. It was an uncomfortable moment, stirring doubts she had worked hard to suppress. No longer could she rely on the justification of her past experiences. She needed to stand firm in her conviction. She inhaled, grounding herself. "I understand the challenges, but I've also faced my own battles. I know what it's like to feel overwhelmed and lost. I will harness that experience to ensure I can support others, children and families, navigating their struggles." There was a pause. A flicker of curiosity crossed the stern woman's face, and Sarah seized that moment, her inherent determination rising. "Leaning into the discomfort of change is vital for growth. I'm ready to embrace every aspect of this role, even the difficult parts." As the interview progressed, she could feel a tangible shift in atmosphere. Each question sharpened her focus, toughening her resolve. Today was indeed a defining moment, but the uncertainty in the room mirrored her own uncertainties. A reflection not just of her potential failure, but her potential success. When the panel thanked her for her insights and she left the room, Sarah knew she had stepped through a threshold. As she walked back to her car, the weight lifted slightly, replaced by a burgeoning sense of optimism mixed with nerves. While she was no longer confined by her fears, she felt the thrill of possibility threatening to explode within her. Yet as she drove home, exhilaration coursing through her veins, a nagging thought surfaced. Would they recognize her transformation? Had she done enough to earn her place among them? That night, as she prepared for bed, uncertainty took hold again. The wait for the call felt like an eternity. Would the impending response confirm her growth or define her fears? And as she stared at the ceiling, tossing and turning, one final thought lingered. It's one thing to show up. It's another to truly embrace the life ahead. Could she step beyond the threshold of this interview and into the life she was meant to live? The answer lay just out of reach, waiting to be discovered with the dawn. The sun pried through the curtains, waking Sarah with a jolt. Her first instinct was to check her phone, heart racing in anticipation of an update from the clinic. But the screen remained blank, mirroring the uncertainty swirling in her mind. As she prepared for the day ahead, the weight of expectation seemed to cling to her every movement. Each task felt monumental. Brushing her teeth, making coffee, and choosing an outfit had never felt so loaded with meaning. Would the right ensemble carry her through the day with the confidence she desperately needed? She settled on a navy blazer and a simple white blouse, hoping the professionalism would cloak her doubts. With the aroma of fresh coffee curling in the air, she sat down to review her notes from the interview. The thought of the stern woman's expression loomed over her, 1 part skepticism and 2 parts intrigue. Had she truly convinced them of her capabilities? Pushing aside the self-doubt, she focused instead on her vision, a vision that transcended merely securing a job. She could inspire change. She could be the ally families needed amidst their pain. As she exited her apartment, the bustling city greeted her. But instead of the typical rush, today felt different, charged with an energy that seemed to synchronize with her inner drive. Every person she passed became a reminder of the lives she could impact. The thought echoed through her mind. What if she embraced discomfort, facing fears head-on rather than letting them dictate her path? By the time she arrived at the clinic, the atmosphere buzzed with activity. Staff members floated through the halls, absorbed in tasks. Sarah's heart thudded loudly in her chest. She navigated her way to the lounge where she would meet with her former supervisor, a decision that felt just as relevant as the interview. When she entered, her eyes fell upon Dr. Harris, seated comfortably in his trademark sweater, wisdom etched on his face. A sense of solace washed over her, counteracting her nervous energy. "Sarah," he said, his voice steady yet warm, "you look prepared for battle today." "More like a gentle skirmish," she replied, forcing out a shaky smile. "I'm here to discuss opportunities, but I'm still waiting to hear back." "While waiting can be agonizing, what have you learned about yourself through this process?" He leaned toward her, his expectation palpable. It was a question that caught her off guard, prompting a moment of introspection. "I've realized that I've underestimated my resilience. I tend to fixate on the outcome instead of recognizing the strength I've cultivated along the way." "Good. That acknowledgement is integral. Growth cannot be linear." His words struck deep, a reminder that before she could help others, she needed to understand and trust her journey. The conversation shifted to strategies as they delved into how to deliver therapeutic interventions, effectively balancing compassion with professionalism. Each point discussed felt enriching. Sarah could sense her voice growing steadier, her ideas taking form with clarity. Then, a thought struck her like lightning. "Dr. Harris, what if I started a workshop series aimed at empowering families, helping them understand how to navigate mental health challenges before they arrive at urgent interventions?" "Now that's a compelling concept," he replied, his eyes twinkling with intrigue. "But you must ask yourself, do you truly believe you are ready for such an undertaking? This kind of initiative requires vision and tenacity." Doubt crept in briefly, gnawing at her resolve. What if she wasn't ready? The specter of inadequacy loomed, testing her courage yet again. "I believe I can't let fear dictate the extent of my ambition anymore. I owe it to myself to try." With that affirmation, a new fire ignited within her. She needed to step into the uncertainty, taking strategic risks to fulfill this newfound mission. As they began to map out her workshop proposal, Sarah felt it, a beautiful mingling of fear and excitement. This was more than just a job anymore. It was her opportunity to step into her purpose. Then, just as they were closing their conversation, her phone buzzed violently on the table. It was a call from the clinic. She hesitated for only a beat before answering, adrenaline flooding her senses. "Sarah," the voice on the other end said, distinctly businesslike yet laced with curiosity. "We'd like to discuss the next steps about your application." The moment of truth had arrived. Was she ready to embrace whatever awaited her on the other side, or would she find herself scrambling to regain her ground once more? The moment Sarah had anticipated, with a mixture of dread and exhilaration, had arrived. She swallowed hard, her resolve hardening with each breath. "Yes, I'm here. I'm ready to talk," she managed to say, her voice unwavering even as her insides twisted with uncertainty. The clinic's administrative director, a meticulous woman with a commanding presence, greeted her. "We're impressed with your interview," she stated, without preamble. "We'd like to discuss a few opportunities in the clinic." Opportunity. The word hung in the air like a promise, yet it felt layered with conditions. Sarah grasped at that glimmer of hope, but a sliver of fear whispered doubts, urging her to question her readiness. "Great," Sarah replied, trying to mask her anxious anticipation. "I would love to hear what you have in mind." They settled in a small conference room adorned with earth tones, the walls cloaked with inspiring quotes about healing and resilience. Yet, as she listened to the director outline the potential roles, her thoughts drifted to the workshop idea she had shared with Dr. Harris. Was there an intersection between what they were offering her and her vision for empowering families? "Your experience speaks volumes, Sarah, but this role requires you to hit the ground running," the director said, snapping her attention back. "You will need to be proactive and confident in high-pressure situations. Can you deliver that here?" The words cut through the room like a blade, exposing her vulnerability. What if she faltered? The weight of their expectations felt oppressive, a duel between her ambition and her fears. Sweltering heat crept up her neck, and the walls seemed to press in as she considered her answer. "Confidence is not just about knowing everything," she began, willing herself to forge a path through the uncertainty. "It's about recognizing my limitations, while also leveraging my strengths. I must continuously grow." She could see the director's brow furrow as she considered Sarah's reply, the challenge hanging in silence between them. It was not merely a matter of competence. She had to ensure they understood she was not the same timid applicant from her past. With newfound determination, Sarah shifted the dialogue. I've been developing a workshop that focuses on empowering families to address mental health challenges. I believe this clinic can play a pivotal role in such initiatives, bridging the gap between urgent care and education." The director took a moment to process her words. Responding with a note of curiosity, she asked, "You want to take on more responsibility?" "Yes," Sarah answered, the word like a lifeline being thrown into turbulent waters. "I want to take action before families reach crisis points. I don't want to just reactive, I want to be proactive in making a difference." For a heartbeat, the room pulsed with tension. It was a daring statement that contradicted the fear gnawing at her gut. She had leaned into the discomfort, stepped into the unknown, each word marking her ascent into bravery. The director nodded slowly, pondering the implications. "Interesting," she remarked, clearly weighing Sarah's ambitions against their needs. "Let's explore this further. If you're committed to making our clinic a place where families feel prepared, we can integrate your ideas into our expansion plans." A rush of warmth flooded through Sarah. This was it. She was beginning to chart her own course, not out of fear, but from a desire to transform the way care was delivered. Still, a shadow of uncertainty loomed in the back of her mind. Did she truly believe she could handle all of this? As they wrapped up the meeting, the director's last words rang in Sarah's ears. "We will give you the tools and support you need. This will be your opportunity to demonstrate that you can lead." Stepping out of the clinic, the setting sun framed her path, its warmth a stark contrast to the tumult within. Sarah's heart raced, not from anxiety this time, but from hope. The ebb and flow of her confidence felt palpable as she embraced the path laid before her. Realizing she stood at a precipice of possibility, each step echoed her commitment to the workshop. Could she transform her ideas into reality? The very notion sent tendrils of excitement sifting into her spirit, entwining with the anxiety that had accompanied her. And in that chaos of emotions, a new focus emerged. She would need to mentor others while she explored her own uncharted territory. Perhaps all of this was leading somewhere significant. Perhaps she was meant to take this leap. But as she stepped into the crowded street, she felt a shift, a rising tension with the dawning realization that she had yet to face a critical obstacle, the reality of executing her vision. Who would stand against her? What challenges lay ahead? The flame of determination flickered dangerously close to the edge of uncertainty, daring her to move forward, and this time the question loomed larger than ever. Would she rise to the occasion, or would the wave of complexity drown her ambitions? As the sun dipped lower, casting elongated shadows through the bustling street, Sarah found herself at a crossroads, grappling with the impending tasks ahead of her. The warmth she had felt while discussing her aspirations started to dissipate, replaced by the chilling realization of the expectations that now lay upon her shoulders. Once home, clarity became her companion as she paced around the dining table. Papers and colorful sticky notes littered the space. Fragments of thoughts that had once served as mere ideas now demanded focus and structure. If she was to make this workshop a reality, she would need a strategic plan, a map to navigate the labyrinth of logistics, creativity, and execution. She had envisioned a program that would encapsulate not only educational content, but also offer emotional support and practical tools for families facing mental health challenges. But how could she solidify her vision and convey its significance? The question ignited a flicker of anxiety within, stirring the shadows of self-doubt threatening to cloud her determination. Sarah stopped pacing, her gaze falling on the stack of self-help books by the window. Each promised transformation. Each spoke of the power within the individual to enact change. Did she dare promise such a thing for herself? Was she capable of leading others while still navigating her own tumult? With sudden resolve, she flipped open her laptop and began typing. The workshop needed a title, a hook that encapsulated its essence and could draw families to engage. She understood that presentation mattered. It needed to convey warmth, hope, and strength. Empowering Lives, a family mental wellness workshop, emerged and felt right. It signified action and togetherness. However, as she typed, another voice started to echo in her mind, an old acquaintance that often surfaced in moments of growth and change. "What makes you think you're qualified to lead something like this?" It snickered. She could almost hear the condescension coloring its tone. "You're not a therapist. You haven't been through what others have. Sarah's fingers hovered over the keyboard. She closed her eyes, recalling her own experiences, navigating the emotional turmoil surrounding her father's struggle with depression, the helplessness of feeling inadequate when faced with his pain. That was her reality. And now, through the lens of those experiences, she could see clarity. She wouldn't merely be a figure standing at the front, lecturing families about mental health. She would share her journey and facilitate a space where others could voice their struggles in a supportive environment. Resolution surged within her. She was not just an advocate, she could become a bridge for others, fostering understanding among families. She continued to draft her ideas, careful to outline her vision while also integrating the essential practical skills families would need. Yet, as the hours ticked away, her stomach turned at the thought of sharing her insights, of positioning herself as someone with authority. Who was she to educate others? The fear crept back in, attempting to latch onto her confidence. Every piece of writing felt like an act of audacity, each phrase a dare against her own apprehensions. In an impulsive decision, she pulled her phone from her pocket and texted Dr. Harris, seeking counsel. "Can we meet soon? I need some guidance on my workshop concept." Anxiety twisted in her stomach as she hit send. What if the response was tepid or worse, dismissive? Moments felt like hours as she awaited his reply. But then her phone chimed. "Absolutely. Let's support your vision together." Relief washed over her, a lifebuoy in the stormy sea of doubts. With renewed determination, she dived back into her plan, drafting a proposal that encompassed not only the workshop content, but also potential partnerships with local mental health professionals. However, looming challenges skittered at the edges of her excitement. What if she reached out to others for their support, only to face resistance? Could she handle dissent and skepticism, or would it unravel her ambition? And yet, in her heart, a new purpose ignited. She would transform her uncertainty into actionable steps. The time had come to confront not only the inertia of doubt, but also the critical task of connecting with collaborators who could elevate her vision. As she assembled her thoughts into a coherent plan, the question lingered, sharper and more immediate than before. Would she possess the courage to meet with potential allies, or would fear of rejection hold her back from the breakthrough she so desperately sought? The meeting with Dr. Harris loomed over Sarah as she prepared herself mentally. Each tick of the clock sounded like a countdown, amplifying her anxiety. What if he questioned her qualifications? What if he saw her vision as impractical? She exhaled deeply and checked her notes once more. They were a mixture of hopes, well-researched facts about mental health, and the pain she had lived through, the core of her drive to help others. Arriving at the cafe where they'd agreed to meet, Sarah's heart raced. She spotted Dr. Harris at a corner table, his presence instantly radiating calm professionalism. She moved toward him, assessing every detail, from how he sat confidently with an aura of steady assurance to the way he smiled warmly as she approached. "Sarah, it's great to see you," he said, gesturing for her to sit. "I'm excited to hear your ideas." The pressure of expectation clung to her like a heavy coat. She quickly summarized her workshop concept, her voice wavering slightly as she presented her title. "I want to create a supportive space for families," she concluded. "It's about sharing experiences and providing tools for managing mental health challenges." Dr. Harris nodded, his expression contemplative. "That's powerful, Sarah. It requires courage to step into this role." His words struck her as both validating and daunting. She sensed he understood the vulnerability that accompanied her ambition. "Do you think I'm capable of leading?" she asked, barely above a whisper, the weight of her doubt creeping back in. "I don't just think you're capable. I believe your personal experience gives you a unique perspective," he replied, leaning forward intently. "But we must develop a structured approach. Families need guidance, yes, but they also need to see someone who can manage the complexities surrounding mental health." With each word, Sarah felt the grip of fear begin to loosen, even as it struggled to cling on. They discussed her plans in detail, workshop outlines, potential activities, and critical resource materials. Dr. Harris offered insights about collaborating with other professionals, emphasizing the importance of building a network around her vision. "You don't have to do this alone," he said. "Reach out. The resistance you fear will often transform into support if framed well." His words ignited a flicker of hope. As they outlined practical next steps, Sarah started visualizing opportunities instead of barriers. Each collaboration mentioned sparked questions she hadn't thought of. Who would she approach first? How could she ensure that her message resonated widely? Yet beneath the surface, something deeper stirred. What if those she approached dismissed her? Overwhelmed by self-doubt, she asked, "What if my ideas sound foolish? What if they don't take me seriously?" Dr. Harris paused, his gaze steady. "Every concept sounds foolish until someone believes in it enough to challenge the status quo. You're doing just that, Sarah. Use your story as both your shield and your sword." His encouragement wrapped around her like a protective cloak. The journey ahead appeared tumultuous, but she felt a clear path forming. There was power in sharing her truth, her narrative woven into the fabric of the workshop's mission. As they wrapped up their meeting, Sarah felt more grounded, more determined. She could do this. Stepping into her own power meant surrounding herself with those who could enhance her vision. But emerging from the cafe, doubts scurried in once again. Who truly cared about her story? Would they conceptualize her experiences as relevant? The questions formed a storm in her mind as she hailed a cab. She felt a primal urge to hit the brakes on this momentum and retreat into the safety of hesitation. Yet, another voice began to rise within her, a voice of resolve. Would she let fear dictate her journey, or would she take that first important step into the world of advocacy, where her voice could echo in support of others navigating similar struggles? As she settled into the cab, a new urgent question resonated. Would she have the tenacity to face potential adversities, ready to craft a narrative that turned obstacles into empowering experiences? A sense of anticipation mingled with anxiety as she glanced at her phone. Texting Dr. Harris hadn't just been a call for guidance. It felt like the very beginning of something significant, something that stretched beyond her insecurities. And with that thought, a resolute determination bubbled within her, challenging her doubts and setting the stage for the pivotal choices ahead. The following morning, Sarah awoke with a blaring alarm that cluttered her thoughts with fragmented dreams of the day ahead. The clarity she felt after her meeting with Dr. Harris began to dissipate as doubts intruded. She rolled out of bed, brushing her hand through tangled hair, and faced her reflection. A mix of fear and determination lit her eyes. Today would be crucial. She intended to reach out to potential collaborators, a task that felt simultaneously thrilling and terrifying. Grabbing her notes, she recalled Dr. Harris's advice. Each connection could open doors she hadn't even considered. But what if those doors remained shut? What if her efforts fell flat? Shaking her head, she fought the nagging voice of self-doubt. Nothing ventured, nothing gained, she recalled from some motivational material she had stumbled upon months ago. She had to take the chance. As she navigated through her morning routine, she formulated a list of individuals she could reach out to. Local therapists, family support organizations, perhaps even schools looking for mental health initiatives. Each name represented a bridge that could connect her to a wider network. Yet the thought of making that first call was paralyzing. What if they didn't see the value in her ideas? Pushing those thoughts aside, she grabbed her laptop, seeking to craft professional yet personable emails. As she typed, words struggled to emerge, tangled in a web of uncertainty. What if they dismissed her? Would they find her workshop relevant? Countless insecurities entered the fray, retreating her confidence with each keystroke. She halted, staring at a blank screen, which taunted her like a mirror reflecting failure. Suddenly, a whisper of defiance surged within her. She had endured her own battles with mental health, witnessed the tumult in her family. That was her strength. Her story demanded to be told, and if she could help just one person through those struggles, wouldn't it be worth the risk? With newfound resolve, she set to write her emails. She poured genuine enthusiasm into her message, outlining her vision for the workshops with clarity and passion. Each word felt like a chisel breaking stubborn stone, forming a path to her aspirations. She pressed send and felt a wave of adrenaline rush through her. The anticipation took a tighter hold as she considered the uncertainty of replies. After a couple of hours of outreach, Sarah's heart raced at the prospect of receive-back feedback. But with every passing minute of silence, her insecurities crept back uninvited. Frustrated, she engaged in a distraction, juggling errands to shake off unseen anxieties. Yet within her, the question nagged: would anyone resonate with her call to promote mental wellness? As the sun dipped behind buildings, she returned home to find her phone blinking with notifications. An email from one of her prospects, a local therapist, had come through. Eagerly she opened it, her pulse quickening. The message was positive. The therapist was intrigued and wanted to discuss collaboration. Sarah could hardly contain her excitement. It was the first sign of validation that her voice had merit in the wider conversation about mental health. Yet, alongside that thrill, a dark shadow loomed. With every step forward, Sarah sensed the weight of isolation from those who didn't understand her journey or dismissed her ambitions entirely. The fear of rejection had transformed into vulnerability. As she contemplated her next move, pondering how to leverage this opportunity, she hesitated. Would she be prepared to disclose her personal story? The fear of judgment loomed ominously in her mind. Would sharing her truth empower her or expose her? She needed to find the balance between openness and vulnerability, but that was yet to be discovered. Determined to embrace the unknown, she took a deep breath, her heart pulsing with renewed determination. One email could change everything. Soon she would have to back that message with courage, not just for herself but for others like her, longing for connection and understanding. And with that sense of anticipation in the air, Sarah found herself facing the ultimate decision: to step fully into the role of advocate, risking everything for a chance to inspire change. Would that be enough? Would that choice ignite a chain reaction in her life and the lives of others? The moment to confront her fears loomed larger than ever, and she knew it was now or never. As Sarah's days unfurled into a routine enhanced by fresh resolve, emails and phone calls transformed into conversations and connections. Each interaction spirited an exchange of ideas, breathing life into her vision for the Empowering Lives workshop. While she sensed the weight of her emotions, the thrill of collaboration mixed with the anxiety of self-exposure, the balance was becoming manageable. Opportunities emerged more intensely than she had anticipated, with several local therapists expressing interest in collaborating. In a significant meeting, she sat across from Dr. Marks, a seasoned therapist known for his work with families in distress. The two briefly discussed Sarah's concept and the potential outreach program. Dr. Marks listened intently, nodding as she articulated her vision. "I want families to feel equipped before they seek help," Sarah said, her voice quaking slightly but infused with optimism. "I'm drawing from my experiences. It's crucial they see they're not alone in their struggles." Dr. Marks leaned in. "That's an incredible motive, Sarah. Your personal narrative can resonate with many. However, may I challenge you? What specific frameworks can we provide to ensure families leave feeling empowered?" The challenge struck Sarah like a lightning bolt. Clarity enveloped her. "We can integrate practical sessions that allow families to engage actively, perhaps even role-playing scenarios to demystify seeking help." The words flowed, each idea sparking others, creating a tapestry of empowerment. The meeting concluded with rich enthusiasm, Dr. Marks offering insights into effective practices. "You have what it takes to lead discussions in a way that is meaningful," he assured Sarah, words grounding her burgeoning confidence. She left the session buoyed by purpose, a feeling she had not felt in years. But as she progressed, doubt clawed back into her consciousness. What if she was not capable of executing such a vision? Days later, as she stood before a crowd that had gathered for the workshop's first session, her heartbeat thundered in her chest. Parents and children, sitting expectantly, became her audience, and doubt tightened its grip. "What if I fail them?" the voice echoed darkly. The event began with her sharing her story, an honest recount of the trials leading her to this moment, unveiling layers of vulnerability. The room pulsed with energy, children's faces lit up with curiosity. As she spoke, she found that their smiles and nods fortified her resolve. Through the workshop, Sarah saw families engage with one another, their laughter ringing through the room as they navigated the role-playing exercises. Parents who previously felt isolated exchanged looks of understanding, realizing they were part of a narrative larger than their individual struggles. By the end of the session, Parents expressed gratitude, praising Sarah's ability to create a space where empathy and learning thrived. The awareness that she had made an impact surged within her. A potent mix of pride and satisfaction enveloped her spirit like a warm embrace. Days turned to weeks, and the Empowering Lives workshop gained traction in the community. Sarah navigated through administrative work, refining the program while continuously reflecting on her journey. She no longer felt confined by tension. Instead, she had learned that it was acceptable to accept help while offering it to others. Each session built on another. Families returning and sharing progress infused her with a newfound sense of identity. She had claimed her space as a leader, translating personal turmoil into focused strength. Months into the initiative, her consistent efforts culminated into meaningful recognition that anchored her sense of self. The clinic hailed her as a beacon for family-centered care, solidifying her role and giving her not just validation, but a robust platform to spearhead further projects. When she later attended a community health fair, she was approached by local officials eager to include her workshops in their health outreach programs. The gravity of her transformation struck as she reflected on her path, how she had journeyed from a woman cloaked in doubt to someone others turned to for inspiration. Sarah realized that she was no longer on the periphery of her own life. She had leapfrogged into the front lines, leading meaningful conversations about mental health with confidence. With each achievement, her perspective expanded, enabling her to use her experiences to advocate for others, proving that personal trials could catalyze systemic change. And as she stood before an audience thanking her for her immense contributions, she grasped the profound truth: the clarity of purpose could rewrite one's narrative. She had conquered the doubts, transformed them into pathways, and was now helping countless families navigate their struggles. She had achieved something truly remarkable. Not only had she turned her fears into strengths, but she had reclaimed her voice, one that echoed loudly within herself and reverberated through her community, defined by resilience and compassion. In that moment, she knew she was exactly where she was meant to be. This is your moment. You need to subscribe now to the channel so you won't miss out on any of these exclusive emotional stories that will inspire you. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help more people discover life-changing content. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. They will appreciate it more than you know. Comment below your reactions and theories about this ending. Let's spark a conversation that resonates.